Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's go for it. Reddit. What's your scariest, creepy, or most disturbing true story? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. In third grade, I had this strange, short teacher named Mrs. Todd. She was always super nice to me in class, compliment me whenever I did something, and was generally just very positive toward me. At the time, I thought she was perhaps my favorite person in the world. I remember even telling my mother about how much I loved Mrs. Todd. Anyways, one day I sat down at my desk and opened was a Victoria's Secret magazine sitting in the pull-out drawer. The kid sitting next to me noticed how shocked I was. I thought I was going to get in trouble, and we started talking about how it might have got there. Almost immediately, Mrs. Todd walks up, asks, "What have you got there?" I was seriously confused and told her it was sitting in my desk when I got here this morning. Well, she looks at me and tells me that the kid sitting next to me must have put it there. She kept repeating that statement over and over again to both him and me, until I finally admitted that I guess he could have put it there. Maybe a few days after that, she approached me after class to tell me about this special field trip I could go on if I kept doing good in class. It would be a trip with just her and I to the Gulf of Mexico for the weekend. I remember being really excited about it at the time. However, suddenly, she got replaced at the school, and we got this new teacher that didn't like me as much. I was so heartbroken at the time. It wasn't until many years later that I realized how effed up that situation was. It scares me thinking about it still. When I was about 8 years old, during recess at school, I noticed a bunch of other kids outside a storage room yelling and warning to others not to approach the door because there was an eyeball staring back at you. I was curious because I didn't understand what they meant, but I could see that their fear was real because their faces were pale white as they would try to deter me from taking a peek through the keyhole. I remember bending down slightly so I could get a closer look inside, and sure enough, there was an eyeball staring back at me, and it freaked me out so much, I peed my pants on the spot. It was only later in that day, after I'd ended up at the nurse's office because of the commotion us kids had created, that a janitor had to go into the room to inspect what this whole mess was about. Turns out that someone had placed a mirror against that door, and the eyeball we were seeing was our own reflection. When I was 7 years old, I was walking to my babysitter's house all by myself. She only lived a block from the schoolyard. I'd done it all the time. This car pulls up beside me on the road, and the driver keeps gesturing me to come closer and shouting, "Come here, come here." I'm frozen on the sidewalk and shaking my head no, while my knuckles turn white, clinging to my backpack. All he says before driving off is, "Stay away from Christina," and then I never saw him again. Christina was one of my on-again, off-again friends in grade school, along with another girl who alternated between hating me and being buddy-buddy. I had completely forgotten about it after a while, and went on being again, off again with both of them. In 5th grade, the other girl invited me to the pop machine in the back hall at lunch. Cool, okay. Quality time with a girl I've known since I was a baby. Sure. We get back to the classroom, and Christina tells me that people were playing with my lunch and hid my stuff, but she was nice enough to bring it back for me. I started drinking the pop I'd brought for lunch, and something was really off. I spit it out and ran for the water fountain to rinse my mouth out. Turns out, Christina and her sister had topped up my drink with Lysol. If I drank much more, I probably would have been stupidly sick. The police were called, and a restraining order was put on both of them. It was delightfully ineffective, however, because the school was so small there was no separate class to put them in. They got 3 and 4 day suspensions. I have no idea if the two events are related, who that man was, or how he knew how bad Christina was at the time, but that memory sticks with me to this day. I was around 11 years old, and I woke up in the middle of the night to a man straddled on top of me with his hand over my mouth and nose. He told me to roll over and not scream. I rolled onto the floor and tried to scream bloody murder. I say tried because when you are truly terrified, it can take a second to find your voice. My mom heard me screaming and came in and fought with the guy. He was at least 6 feet. She was 5'3", and scared him enough with the fighting and screaming that he took off out the window he had come in and through. Never did catch him. That is wild. I mean, your mom was at the right place at the right time. Glad that worked out for you. Wow. I was outside playing with friends one afternoon. We were around 9 or 10. We lived in a quiet area. As we were playing, we noticed a man in a truck drive by over and over again. Each time he passed my friend's yard, he would drive slowly. We then realized that this man was recording us with one of those old handheld recorders. It freaked us out. We ran inside their house and called his mom. She told them they needed to stay inside and that I should go home. I tried explaining that my mom wasn't home at the moment, but she still made me leave. I lived about a mile or two down the road. I never ran so fast in my life. I was terrified that man was going to find me as I was running back home. When my mom found out what happened, she was super pissed off at my friend's mom hadn't allowed me to stay at their house until she could come pick me up. When I was a kid and lived in my old apartment, my mom befriended the downstairs neighbor and would often invite her over for coffee and tea because she was always so lonely. A few weeks went by without hearing from her, so we both go downstairs and knock on the door. It was like a movie where when you knock, the door slowly crept open, as if it had been this way for a while. We walked inside and found her in the bathtub, covered in blood, and the smell was disgusting. Apparently, the lady's girlfriend left her, and she couldn't handle the pain. My mom's way of comforting me was, "Don't worry, Mark. She was our friend, so she won't haunt us." Gee, thanks, Mom. My wife and I stayed at a small rental property in Bath, UK this spring. Whilst in bed, I heard the gate to the property right outside our bedroom window open and close quietly. This immediately made me jump up and become alert. I heard someone trying to quietly walk on the gravel walkway to our front door until the motion sensor light came on. I saw a person's shadow dart against the wall outside of our room and instantly went into attack mode. I ran into the kitchen and grabbed a knife from the wooden block and stood at the front door ready to pounce. It was silent for way too long, and then I heard someone running away. The light turned off, the person took off running. I have no idea what their intentions were, but I almost stabbed the hell out of someone that night. It still gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Probably just my entire life would count as a disturbing, scary story. My mother and grandmother were always extremely protective over me as a child. I grew up forbidden to visit friends or family, walk down the street, go outdoors by myself, or even cook or drive. It got worse and worse as I grew older. I mean, I was 19, and my mother forbade me from having a job. She told me that I had everything that I needed right here with her. I didn't need money. I decided that enough was enough, and saved up some money from doing laundry and finding change around the house, swiping what I could here and there, and I had to hide it well. She would steal it from me if she found it. She said that all money was hers and hers alone. I packed my bags one day and tried to leave. She actually tackled me to the ground and dragged me back inside with my grandmother's help, had my phone reported stolen, and took it from me so that I couldn't make calls, and slept beside my bed to make sure that I didn't sneak away. She took me to a church meeting one day, holiness, and had the demons blessed out of me for 3 hours solid. No one would help me. She had them all convinced that I was nuts and needed help. She even recruited a cousin on my next attempt weeks later, when I actually got a bus ticket, to come and trick me into the car. Cousin told me that she was protecting me, helping me, but she wanted to talk to me first. Shut the car door on me after I got in. It had child safety lock on it. They drove me home and kept me isolated for a solid year before I could get help. Some of my relatives even parked their cars in the driveway for a while to keep me from leaving. That sounds like some type of, Munchausen thing without the sickness, just keeping you locked up like that, but glad you got out eventually, but that is wild. Whoa. I'm in my room, sitting in front of my computer, working late at night as usual. I have to go pee, so I head out the door. I'm staying with family for a few weeks, so I try to be super quiet to avoid waking anyone up. To get to the bathroom, I have to go around a sort of left-handed U-turn. I've stayed in this house for a month or so every year for as long as I've been alive, and I've done a lot of midnight pees, so I know the way by heart. I go out the door, take a few steps, left turn, few steps, left turn, down the hall, and into the bathroom. I turn the light on in the bathroom, do my business, turn the light off, and start making my way back toward my room. I don't want to turn on the hall light at this point again to avoid disturbing family, so I'm basically blind. I feel my way down the hallway, right turn, few steps, right turn, and suddenly, holy, I swear I saw a shadow or something move. I stop dead and listen as hard as I can, still totally blind, nothing. So I take another few steps, and I swear to God I saw a shadowy figure move toward me, directly towards me, out of the solid wood door in my room. I stop again and feel panic start to set in. This is the creepiest thing that I've ever experienced since childhood nightmares, and I used to have some pretty effed up ones. Like that my dad was trying to kill me. I'm not imagining things. I definitely saw a shadowy thing move toward me in the dark. I take one more step toward my room, close enough to the door to grab the handle, and the shadowy, creepy as hell thing moves toward me again. It's getting bigger every time. It's right in front of my face, inches away, but I can't quite focus on it. I start to seriously freak out. I actually consider calling for help. Sleeping family be damned. And that's when my nose bumps into the mirror that hangs on the wall next to my door at 90-degree angle to it. Turns out I got totally disoriented and never made my second right-hand turn. The end. When I was 4 years old, my father, stepmother, and baby brother all died in a highway collision with a semi-truck. They parked on the side of Highway 84 in West Texas between Lubbock and Abilene. They stopped to check on the baby, who was having a fit. The semi-driver had been over his hours and veered onto the shoulder and hit their car going downhill at about 70 miles per hour while they were stationary. No one but the semi-driver survived the ensuing damage and fire. Being 4, I hadn't been around him that much since my parents split, so I to this day don't have any recollection of him at all, but I ended up attending Texas Tech in Lubbock and consequently drove past the same spot on the way from Dallas-Fort Worth to Lubbock. I decided to research the incident, and I found an article of someone who saw the accident and called for help. They lived in the house at least up until when the article was written and put on the internet, but they always described seeing the young family, my family, from the crash walking along the side of the highway, continuing their journey but never getting any closer to their destination, which, sadly enough, they were coming from Albuquerque to Houston to pick me up for a few months. I was actually at a loss when I found the story. I broke down, which was weird because I never knew this person. They're part of me, and I don't even know who this is. I attempted to find the spot of the accident by asking some locals who surprisingly remembered the incident from the late 90s. I was able to find the approximate spot, and I took a couple moments of silence while I was there just to show respect. It's one of the stranger stories I have. Went to my aunt and uncle's house one family vacation about 10 years ago. We drove from South Texas to some small town in Missouri. Can't remember the name. We arrived there at 1 a.m. Family consisted of myself, 2 younger sisters, mother, father. Most of the family was hungry from the long drive and wanted to see if a McDonald's was open. I was tired from the long car ride and wanted to stay at the house. Mom said one of my sisters would be staying as well. I settled down into the living room watching TV, slightly dozing off. I can remember hearing pitter-patter down the hallway and assumed my sister was just running around. She's been eating sugary snacks the whole way up. I get a call from my mom asking what I wanted to eat, and in the background can hear both my sisters arguing. I hear a giggle somewhat behind me, standing right up, and look around. Nothing. I ask my mom if my sister ended up going with them, which she confirmed. I stood in the corner of the room till everyone got back. Alright, the cynic in me or skeptic would be like, well, maybe it was the house settling, you're not familiar with some of the sounds in the house, or maybe it was a little child ghost. I was in my mid-20s walking home from work across my local park. It was summer, broad daylight. The park was fairly dodgy by night, but safe and busy, with people relaxing and walking their dogs during the day. I always made a shortcut through a small gate in the middle of the park, which led out the road. On this day, there were two youngish Asian guys blocking the gate. I had a gut feeling that something wasn't right, and that I should avoid them, but reasoned I was being stupid and continued on. I just asked them to move when I got to the gate, but as I edged closer, one of the guys disappeared from view, and the other suddenly started shouting out to me, "Hey, you got the time?" As he did this, I realized the second guy was now crouching behind the nearby bushes. I took a few steps more and then noticed that there was a car parked next to them, and two, maybe more guys were crouched alongside the car. In an instant, I realized something was wrong, and I did an about turn, quickening my step in the opposite direction. The same guy that started shouting again, "Oi, oi, you, what's the time?" My adrenaline racing, I sped up again toward another exit from the park. The guy didn't shout again, but I was scared all the way home that they were following me. My hands have never shaken so much when turning the key in my door. I fully believe that I avoided being gang-ard or kidnapped that day.